Day 5. So this one's about travel stories. And I've been thinking about this one for a bit. And to be honest, I hate to travel. So my stories are rarely positive. And I don't know, it's when you travel and you just pretty much want to survive, it's difficult to find it enjoyable. So I don't know if I can come up with a story as least as the original person that I got this basic plan from probably intended. But travel is an important facet of life. I typically don't do it too often, but this last year or so I have been doing it more and more. And it's generally around the idea of going to a city a couple, 3, 4, maybe 5 hours away. And so for me, it's usually about trying to find some sort of ride there and dealing with the cost of it. Um, it's not uncommon to pay a couple of $100 to go 2.5 hours away. Um, and that's because I got to pay the driver's time. It's not about gas, not about the car itself. It's time. People want to be paid for that, particularly if I'm there for more than just a handful of hours. Some of these trips, I've been there a day, 2 days, 3 days. And for them to go there, come back home, because it's usually some individual who's doing this on the side, and then to do it again a little later. So it can add up fast. The other aspects of travel is, I use a white cane to get around, and not every place is cane friendly. And you get into these bigger buildings and airports. Oh my God, airports! The 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 awfulness that is an airport is it's hard to explain. You got to imagine going there, not knowing it well or at all, and not seeing a thing, and depending on strangers to, one, treat you with respect, and two, um, to actually try to meet your needs. Those are tall orders, unfortunately, today. When I was younger, I didn't mind it so much because honestly, people were kinder. And they understood. There was actual exposure. There was some teaching. People really had a bit of a clue. Not anymore. No clue. So I'm dealing with people grabbing you and trying to yank you somewhere, talking loudly at you as if you're deaf, or talking slowly because I am clearly mentally challenged. Um, and then there's kind of on the opposite side where they just point and say it's over there. it's it is a trial, and every travel trip I have has at least one of these episodes in it, and it just doesn't make it fun. I don't like to travel, and when I do, I do my best to forget it, because otherwise I would be very depressed. Because if the general public was treated the way the blind is, um, there'd be a lot more violence. There really would be. So, one of the things that I would like to see happen, though, to put it on a positive note, Um, AI is kind of a game changer for the blind community because it's giving us tools to be just that more independent, even though the 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 information can be quite wrong, and we can't use life critical uh, moments to use these tools and such. But for the day and day where not a whole lot's at stake, oh yeah, um, I use them because I don't have to seek out a reader. I don't have to find a friend or family and get all this passive aggressive stuff about bothering them. Um, and it happens. People get quite nasty um, and belittle you when when you're leaning on them several times a week for months on end. Um, so these tools get rid of that, and we can interrogate our environment and such. So these things really help. The place that, due to privacy, and I agree that it shouldn't reach out there and know everybody in the world, but I should have the right to say, hey, this is Bob. I want you to remember Bob. I want you to be able to find Bob. Um, and I want you to tell me how Bob looks and dresses, what color hair he is, how tall he is. Is he getting fat? Is he getting slim? I I should have access to that information just like everybody else because I know Bob. I interact with Bob, and these companies putting these AI privacies in there that prevent it altogether is absolutely wrong. Um, and that's definitely how I feel about it. But where it's really exciting, but sadly I will probably never experience it, is the self-driving vehicle. Um, I want to be able to hop in that thing, give it an address, and it can get me to the door. I get out, it parks itself, I go in, do my stuff, I come out, and it's either summoned then or it's coming up, and it can find me, and I can get in it and continue on. That would be just so freeing because then I could go and do things at the same cost as everybody else on my schedule, on my whims, um, on my plans. It's nothing. I don't know how many times I've had somebody flake out on me saying, "Oh, something came up," or I'm sick. People invent a lot of excuses not to do things, and I use my ears, and people don't realize they're not very convincing. I can hear a true problem, and I can hear when one is being fished for and invented, and it happens a great deal. But getting back to getting rid of that problem and being able to just go around town, little trips, that would be that would be a dream coming true. Sadly, the insurance companies and lawmakers aren't thinking of me as a person who is going to do everything in my power to buy one of those things should it become truly available. Um, but the thing that they have to keep in mind is when I get in there, I can't take over. If it gets in trouble, I can't take over. And insurance and lawmakers requiring that, it's understandable, but it's not fair either. Um, and what will it be like in 20 years? I don't know. But I'm going to be in my mid 70s then. Um, I have no idea what my health will be like. how how well I'll be able to travel, and so it's very unlikely that we get to that 20-year mark and they've worked all the kinks out and got all the case law in place. They know who to blame when things go wrong. I'll probably never get to enjoy it. But the thing I can do is hope. The thing I can do is speak and make it known that here is an application that is very desirous, and there are thousands of people with a vision problem. Not to the I'm not talking about to the point where I can't even see my own hand. I'm not talking about that. There's people who have true vision problems but can still see enough to function, and you can't see it until they stumble, until they slam into something, or they misidentify a color. Those people probably shouldn't be driving, and they need that option too. And so when you look at that spectrum, we are in thousands of people. Where I live, there is already 10,000 of us just in this sort of area. And when you take the entire state, it's 150,000 people with a vision problem. And as soon as you go to the whole US, we're into almost 100 million. There's a lot out there. 1%, 5%, 10%, these sound like low numbers. But when you're looking at 25% of 7 billion people having a vision problem across the world, that's not a small number anymore. So we got to stop thinking about, oh, it's a small percentage. No, it's not. We have so many people on this world that a small percentage is hundreds of millions of people. 1% is so many people. So if you have an opportunity to make a difference, to add a little extra, shoot for that platinum standard, not the 80%, platinum, because you will experience a disability in your life someday. Be it permanent or temporary, doesn't matter. You will experience one. And I hope you don't have to stay that way long, because you will not be ready. We don't teach it. We don't talk about it. We ignore it. We are not prepared for when some sense or ability is taken away from us. And we live in a time of technology and manufacturing. There's no excuse. Once you scale this stuff up to the same hundreds of millions, it's pennies. Not thousands of dollars, pennies. And that's what travel always reminds me of. The lack of access, the lack of caring, the lack of thought, the lack of planning for when you will be in that situation. So anyways, that's my rant. We'll close it here. Until next time. Speech on. Zoom. 1.0 time. Camera mode. Video. Adjust. 14. Viewfinder. Focus unlock. Viewfinder. 14. Zoom. Stop recording video. Button.